Several European countries have suspended use of the AstraZeneca COVID-19 vaccine after reports of blood clotting in some people who received it. Denmark's health authority said there was a reported death in the country, but that it was too early to say whether there was any link to the vaccine. Earlier this week, Austria suspended a batch of the AstraZeneca shot after a woman died of multiple blood clots 10 days after being given the jab. Estonia, Lithuania, Latvia and Luxembourg then also stopped using the batch, which contained 1 million doses. This prompted the European Medicines Agency to look into the cases. It said on Wednesday that there was no indication that the blood clots were caused by the vaccine, as their incidence was no higher than in the general population. But today, 3 more countries decided to temporarily stop using the jab as a precaution: Denmark, Norway and Iceland. Well, to analyse this, we can speak to Simon Colstow, a senior lecturer in evidence-based healthcare at the University of Portsmouth in the UK. Thanks very much for joining us on Euronews Now. Are you surprised to see these countries, one after the other, halting the use of the AstraZeneca vaccine?
I mean, in some ways, not really, because I think we've seen throughout the whole of the sort of COVID situation over the last year or so that different countries have different attitudes to risk and very different approaches to how they address the various things that COVID raises. So the fact that we see lots of different policies in lots of different countries over lots of different issues in relation to COVID doesn't particularly surprise me that different countries are taking different approaches to the way the vaccine rollouts are happening, and also to their approach towards what will inevitably be, I think, little hiccups along the way.
Now, I think the figures show that there have been perhaps just over 20 reported cases of these blood clots after people had been administered the jabs, and yet we're talking about some 3 million doses of the AstraZeneca jab across the European Economic Area. I mean, how do health authorities begin working out whether there's a link between these cases and the vaccine?
Absolutely, and I think it's really important to understand the difference between correlation and causation, because clearly so many people are being given the vaccines that there's going to be plenty of other health things that will just happen normally, whether or not the vaccine were given to people or not. And the fact that you see things like blood clots, the fact that blood clots might get correlated to the number of people who are being vaccinated, doesn't mean the vaccines are actually causing those blood clots. So take, for instance, the weather getting warmer, more people are getting vaccinated. There is a correlation between the weather getting warmer and more people getting vaccinated, but of course that's because it's springtime. That doesn't mean that the vaccine causes the weather to get warmer. And it's exactly a similar sort of thing with medical things, that just because things correlate with each other doesn't mean one thing caused the other. And the only way then to find out about the causation is to look into it in a lot more detail and then hopefully conduct some studies and maybe also go back to the original clinical trials.
There have been, of course, reassurances from the UK government, from the manufacturer. The European regulator said there's no evidence so far of any link. But even if the reassurances are reinforced, isn't the damage done? And AstraZeneca has already suffered a bit from bad press, which has made people somewhat wary.
I have to admit, I am quite surprised by the countries that have stopped using the vaccine. I think that was perhaps a bit of a reaction, because you see these sorts of things happen whenever any new drugs come out. And I think there is just simply not very strong evidence at all to show that the AstraZeneca vaccine causes or has caused these things. And so I am a little bit surprised by the reaction of some of these nations.
Dr. Simon Colstow from the University of Portsmouth, thanks very much for joining us on the programme. The European Medicines Agency